Good morning, Rowan. I am glad to be back here with you today. We are going to be starting a new project like this sunflower image that I have for you to look at right now. This is a student piece of artwork. We are going to be learning a little bit about Vincent van Gogh, who was a famous Dutch painter who lived about 140 years ago. We are going to look at a couple of his sunflower paintings, and that's going to inspire us to make a piece of art like the one that I just showed you that was done by students. The supplies that you will need today are your dark sheet of paper, your paints, orange and yellow, green, and then I have a little yellow and green together to make a light green, and then blue for the background. You will need a pencil, several paintbrushes, and I've got my paper towel here to dry my brushes off, and my water. Let's go ahead and get started. Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch painter who lived in the late 1800s. He is known most famously for probably his Starry Night painting, but he did many paintings, and he did a whole series of paintings with sunflowers. Van Gogh painted during the Impressionist period and right on the edge of the Impressionist period. And the Impressionists painted not photographically to be realistic, but instead they used their paint really thick and often with lines and dots and kind of abrupt ways of painting, also known as pointillism, where you use lots of little dots together to create paintings. They did this so that you could sense a feeling, have a feeling, or sense what it was like at that moment in time, what the light was like, how they might have felt about it, the weight of the objects. They wanted you to interact with the image they were creating in an emotional way more than a way of getting information. I know that's a lot, but as you can see in these paintings that I've shown you of these sunflowers, you can tell that there's a lot of what we call texture, where the texture is basically what the surface of an object is like. So texture can be rough or bumpy or soft or fluffy. And if you saw one of these Van Gogh paintings at an art museum for real, you would see that it actually has a rough texture because the paint is so thick. But artists not only can create a surface with a lot of texture, they also create a visual texture where they want the image to appear to be rough or smooth or bumpy. And you can see there's a lot of visual texture in his sunflowers. So he used lots of yellows. He changed out the backgrounds in these. And so you see how the yellow goes with the different kinds of backgrounds, some of them more green and yellow and blue. These would have been considered studies where he would do a painting and he would try it out, and then he would recreate another one, maybe from a different view, maybe when the light was different, maybe when the flowers were different. So we're going to use his artwork for the inspiration of our sunflower painting. We are not going to do ours in a vase. Instead, we are going to do one like the student artwork you can see here, where we are going to spend time looking at sunflowers, which tend to have a very large center, that are black and filled, blacks and browns and dark oranges, that are filled with seeds, and then they're bright yellow petals on the outside. So let's go ahead and get started with our painting. So what you're going to want to do is grab your pencil before we use our paints. And we're just going to draw kind of a pretty big circle in the top part of our sheet. I have my paper going the long way or vertically, and you can see in this light, I initially made a circle just so that's a little too big. I'm going to use this inside one. That's going to be the center of my flower. And then when I put triangles on, they will come out along these edges. And we don't have to draw all those on because we're going to paint them. I am going to put a stem in here. And if you've ever seen a sunflower in real life, they can be more than 9 or 10 feet tall, and they have very thick stems. They can be big, like the actual flower itself can like be bigger than your head. So they're very beautiful and they're fun, and the birds love them because they have so many seeds in the center. So we're going to take the interior of our flower, and we are going to do what we call pointillism, where we put dots of color around in the interior here of our circle to create the seeds. So I've got a couple different brushes here, and I am thinking both of these are flat. I'm thinking I want a round one if I'm going to do dots. So you can see this is a round tip brush. Your paintbrush wet and your paint wet, mix it around. And just like I've said over and over to you, your paint is a little bit nicer than mine. So I am just lifting up the paint. I'm dropping it down. I load up my brush with it, and I'm kind of going in a spiral, and I'm going to spiral out with my paint. Now I'm going to also pick up some of the orange. I want some variety as we go out. We're just going to keep varying that color. And it's okay if it kind of gets darker and bigger as it goes. I think I'm tempted to add just a little bit of brown, which means I'll send brown home for you as well. I'm going to pick up a little bit, see what that does. Yeah, I think I kind of like that brown mixed in. Your paint has quite a bit more white in it, so yours should stand out better. But I love working with paint, so it's just a lot of fun to keep that up. I'm going to take a little bit of my brown, and I am mixing orange with it, and that kind of creates like a burnt orange, which is a nice variation on the colors that I already have. So you're just going to go around, and you can see with some of this other student art, there are sections that some of the kids did where the yellow is in, even though it kind of spirals out, where the yellow is in a kind of like in a corner where they have a lot of that. If your brush gets too much paint on it and you feel like it's really hard to control, you can go ahead and clean off your brush and start over. I am going to add a little bit, this is acrylic paint, so this is not what you have, but I don't have any white tempera with me here, but I think that's going to help my paints show up better. So I am going to mix my orange with that. You can see that as my paint dries, I'm losing some of it. So adding that white to it, I think is really going to help. So I'm doing a section of orange, and I'm going to bring that all the way around. And like I said, we're just going to do dots all the way around. Using just the tip of your brush and putting down dots is a way of doing the pointillism that was similar to what the impressionist artists like to do. I hope you have a lot of fun just putting all these dots down. And I don't want you to rush, Ron. If you're feeling like you need to take a break, then cover up your paints and do that, okay? Because if you get this too sloppy, then it won't be any fun because the paints will all blend together, and then take your time. I'm going around with the darker color on the edge of my circle. That is very common with sunflowers, is that edge where you have the petals next to it, it tends to be darker around it. I'm using the paint really thick. It feels a lot the way Van Gogh would use his paints thick. It's kind of fun to see it that way and not to blend all of the colors. There's the inside of my, I'm going to clean my brush because we're just going to be working with our yellows and oranges, and we're going to be putting petals on. And the way we're going to put petals on is we are going to basically be working with our shapes. We're going to do triangles all the way around. You might need to turn your painting around so that you don't get paint on the table that you're painting on. Now I spilled that there, and I don't want, I'm going to find a way to incorporate that. So I'm going to have another petal behind this one. I'm going to be rotating my painting now so that it's easier for me to reach. You might want to make sure that there is paper between your painting and the table that you're working on. So I'm turning my painting around one more time. And I just keep doing triangles all the way around. Now I can see that that petal started getting really big. Notice that my triangles all stop right on the edge of the center of that sunflower. I'm just going to pick up a little extra paint that I have and make sure I get my petals nice and solid. You have different parts of your orange and yellow yet left. You can paint, I'm going to turn my painting around again. You can see how this one is drying so much that we can not hardly see what color is left. So I went over that again. So you can double coat any of your petals if you have leftover paint. Go ahead and do that. You also can, like I'm making these, as I double coat them just a little bit bigger. And that's the one behind. As we are getting ready to paint the background of our sunflower and the stem, I have put a paper background. It's just an old paper bag that I cut open to protect the table, the desk that I'm working at. So I'm going to scooch this up, and we've got our stem. So I'm going to take my greens. Now I mixed a little bit of yellow with mine, so you can mix up yours so you have multiple greens. I have, this part's a little bit lighter. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a leaf. Sunflowers have good sized leaves. They do kind of have textured stems as well, so I'm making some of the greens stick out on the stem. And I could make another one right down here. I'm really trying to use up my paint so none of it is wasted. We're doing it Van Gogh style, so it's okay if it's thick. So that's the part of the flower that we're going to do. But now I want you to get a slightly larger brush than what you were working with. If you have one, I'm going to use one of the flat brushes that I had out. And we're going to take some of our blue, and we are just going to put a blue background in. So we're going to start by painting a blue background in. Now I don't want you to touch the green that is still drying. So if there's a little bit of dark in between that shows through from your paper, that's okay. That'll make our flowers stand out. Just like we did before, you might need to rotate your painting so that it's easier to paint. We then are going to get in between the petals, and you just want to be careful. It's okay to leave some black showing in between. If your paint is still really wet, take your time and just let it dry and come back and do the background later. If you mix orange and blue, you will get a brown. So we don't want a brown sky. I'm going to rotate my painting again so it's easy to access. You can see on our painting that there are some areas that have thicker paint than others. You can spread some of that out, but some of it is just the way Van Gogh painted, where he left areas, some parts of it, thicker than other parts. And he let the paint go on thick and stay thick. So feel free, I still have some blue paint left, so I'm just gonna go in and add it to any spots that I think are going to dry too light. But I'm gonna let some areas be thicker than others, and that's gonna be okay. I'm just going to switch it around one more time so I can get this spot right here in the corner. You can see how it was drying dark. So here is our Van Gogh inspired sunflower painting. I hope that you had as much fun as I did. I would love to see a picture on Seesaw of your painting and how it worked out. Let me know whether you liked using the paint thick or not. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.